beloveds. My name is Alex Mella. My pronouns are she, hers. And I have the incredible honor and privilege to be the co-producer of artEquity's Alumni 2025 Gathering, along with the most brilliant mind I've ever met, Alexis Green. I'm going to do the land, labor, and soil acknowledgement before we begin our evening. And I want to invite, if you have not yet, to give an offering to the centers on the stage tonight, built by my very good friend, Maya Milan Gonzalez. I invite you to do so at any time. Friends, before we gather in applause today, in witness or in story, we must gather in truth. We must gather in fire. We must gather in remembrance. And we must gather in radical commitment. I want to invite us to arrive fully with our whole bodies, our full attention right here on this land. Not a quiet pause, not a performative pause, a gut check, a ground check, a truth check. We are standing on stolen ground, and we're going to say that out loud. We are gathered tonight in Boyle Heights on the stolen homelands of the Tongva people, whose villages dotted this basin for thousands of years before Spanish missions, before Mexican rancheros, not rancheros, Mexican ranchos, before American conquest carved up earth and called it property. This is the land of the Los Angeles River, before concrete strangled its flow, a place of gathering, a place of ceremony, a place of trade, of storytelling, of life, and yes, a place of heartbreak, of removal, of genocidal policy disguised as salvation. We also honor the Chumash and all the Indigenous nations who have ties to these mountains, these waters, these stories. Many have been erased, but the thing about erasure is here tonight, we don't know her. Because the land remembers, the river flows and remembers, the people remember, and the art carries it all forward. This is not a past tense land. This is not a past tense struggle. This is a land alive with Indigenous brilliance, joy, grief, with Black futurism, with resistance. And this soil remembers everything. It remembers the hands that built this city, enslaved hands, immigrant hands, Indigenous hands, refugee hands. Every harvest that fed this nation built with the labor of people who were never meant to inherit it. But this land is layered. This is the neighborhood where families have been pushed out by gentrification disguised as revitalization. This is a community where ICE raids tear children from breakfast tables. This is the place where brown skin is a border wall, where a Black body is a target practice, where trans bodies are a battleground, where Indigenous ceremony is criminalized. But this is also a place where the people have always risen up, where Chicano, Black, Indigenous, immigrant, queer, organizers, artists, youth, and many more have declared again and again, this is enough. We honor the students who have walked out and said education without representation is oppression. We honor the mothers. We honor this space, Plaza de la Raza, and every community space that has held culture when the city only offered concrete. We honor the muralist who turns walls into manifestos, every organizer who turned pain into power, every parent who worked 3 jobs so their children could imagine bigger. This plaza community was built by people who knew that when the systems fail you, you don't wait for permission, you build sanctuary with your own hands. So tonight we gather in that same spirit. 10 years of artEquity, 10 years of Carmen Morgan's vision, proving that culture is not decoration for revolution. Culture is the revolution. Can you breathe with me for a second? Ooh, I need a breath. All right. I want to remind us that we're not normal people here tonight. We are the children of people who survived genocide, slavery, deportation, detention, who crossed oceans and deserts and mountain ranges, and every law designed to break them. This is not a land acknowledgement or just a panel. This is a ceremony, a provocation, a demand, a celebration of what's possible when we follow Black folks, when we follow Indigenous folks, Minotma folks, all the folks, working class folks, and we follow not just in theory or in words, but in our stories, in our budgets, in our institutions, in our relationships. How are we standing in the gap? So tonight we gather in the echoes of walkouts, in the pulse of Buried River. We gather in the body of this place. We gather tonight to explore what is home. How have we had to plant in ash and grow anew? How can we work better in community and solidarity? Because this right here, this gathering, this community, I believe it's what the ancestors prayed for and worked for. It is the future they planted in. We are the answer. So we honor what came before. And we hope tonight that the ideas and the history shared will shape our future. Thank you so much. Please invite my good friends, Zach and Mauricio.
Muchas gracias, Alex. Bienvenidos, bienvenido, mi gente. Mi nombre es Mauricio Tafur Salgado, and this is...
My name is Dano, y him is.
Estamos aquí agradecidos a estar en la Plaza de la Raza. Dígalo conmigo, Plaza de la Raza. Y bienvenidos a todos los que están con nosotros en vivo, en transmisión.
Welcome to Plaza de la Raza.
And to everyone who's with us on live stream, we are here today to celebrate artEquity's 2025 Alumni Gathering and celebration of 10 years, a decade of incredible work. Incredible work offering programming that centers the global majority and the needs of Black, Indigenous, people of color, artists, and arts leaders, with a through line of intentional support for Black artists and arts leaders. This tonight is a public conversation called on finding ground in a shifting world. But before we get into the conversation, I got to take a moment to say that it's not just us celebrating artEquity, it's also the city of Los Angeles. Is that right, Dot? Here we have a proclamation, a certificate of recognition of artEquity, which reads, the Los Angeles City Council and Council District 10 recognizes artEquity for their work on leadership development, community building, strategic support for artists and arts leaders of color, resources for wellness, and joins them in celebrating their 10th year anniversary. Today, that's right. That day, October 22nd, but here we are, October 24th, and then October 25th, and on we go. Dot, will you introduce us a little bit to tonight's events and who's here with us speaking?
Sure. I'd also just like to remind everyone that artEquity also provides direct fiscal support to artists and activists in need through our Artists and Activists Community Fund.
That's right, and I am a grateful recipient of that fund, as are so many others here. No doubt those of you online as well. Thank you, artEquity.
We'd like to also acknowledge our captioners, right?
That's right, we've got captioning happening from the National Captioning Institute. Thank you so much.
And sign language translators from Pro Bono ASL.
And those of you who are online, please don't forget to drop comments and questions. We've got a great team here who will be sharing out your questions and comments for the Q&A.
All right. So again, tonight's conversation is called Finding Ground in a Shifting World and features Amal Bisharat. Amal Bisharat is a Palestinian-American multidisciplinary artist, theater director, writer, producer, musician based between Los Angeles and San Francisco. She's the artistic director and co-founder of Meme Collective, a music and sound design company, collaborating with Mina and Swana artists across theater, film, and TV. Seth Hernandez. Seth Hernandez is a queer, undocumented filmmaker, writer, and community organizer from the Bicol region of the Philippines. Their acclaimed documentary, Unseen, received an Independent Spirit Award and was shortlisted for the IDA Documentary Awards, noted for its groundbreaking and accessibility for blind and undocumented audiences. Donna Simone Johnson, queer actor, director, cultural worker whose artistry bridges performance, pedagogy, and community organizing. As co-artistic director of Watts Village Theater Company, South LA. As programming and communications coordinator at the Chapter House, an Indigenous community art space, and as event and grant manager for the Lindy Waters Third Foundation, where she mentors Native youth. I'd like to introduce and bring to the stage our colleague and our leader, Nisi Aya.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, hey, my name is Nisi. And as we consider what it means to come together to build and shape collective power towards a shared freedom, we're asking ourselves tonight, what's at stake? What still roots us? And what kind of home do we make possible when we gather like this? To guide this conversation, it is a big honor to introduce someone who has had a tremendous impact on so many lives and whose vision shaped this community and gathering. Founder and director of artEquity, Carmen Morgan, give it up. Exactly. Has been on the forefront of conversations of equity, inclusion, and racial justice in the arts and culture field. As someone who is fiercely committed to sparking the change that collectively shifts culture, Carmen not only provides tools and resources towards those aims, but asks, inspires, and demands even that we shift the conditions of our personal world that would hinder us from building community, power, and self-determination. It is a pursuit that she rests in our hearts and leaves at the hearth of the spaces she cultivates and calls us to gather in. Her years of service, community building, and stewarding of faith and wellness of Black people, Black women, folks and artists of colors, and the community she holds deep and close has shown us and has been so diligently modeled. Please welcome Carmen to the stage.
You all, I just want to say, I'm so moved. I'm gonna, what do we do? We're supposed to do this panel. Okay, we're gonna do a panel, but I just want to say, what an extraordinary gift. You know, everyone from Alexis to Nisi to this just incredible team, Courtney, Auntie Bonnie. I'm just looking at Sean. I'm looking at all the folks, everybody, and I'm at a loss for words because everything that they were saying was just, we just want you to show up. You know, every time I would go past somebody, I'd say, "Do you need me for anything? Do you need me?" And they're like, "No, can you just sit down and just." So I want to say thank you for this incredible gift. This alumni gathering has been extraordinary. Well done, beautiful people.
Okay, I'm going to sit down and this is not good. Oh, I'm just frazzled. Oh my gosh. You all, I want us to just have an intimate conversation. And I mean, seriously, if you could just huddle together. We've got 4 incredible panelists. I'm going to call them up in a minute. You've already heard them introduced. But before we do that, I just let's get intimate. Alex already said this. We're not going to have, this is not a panel conversation. You know, we're having these conversations and leaning into some of the most, timely, urgent conversations of our time. There's no rule book for this. These are some extraordinary times. So let's get close. You know the folks next to you. You know this is our community. So let's lean in and let's get into this conversation. The thing that I wanted to say about this discussion around shifting ground is, you know, what happens when the ground shifts. You got to steady yourself. And you got to lean on those folks near and dear to you when the ground starts to shift. And we have been leaning into an analogy. You know, we like an analogy. I heard somebody say that the other day. They're like, you know, artEquity loves an analogy. We've been leaning into this analogy all year long. You know, as soon as we started to feel the ground tremble and we could see what was in store, Sherilyn Ifill set it up. Incredible civil rights attorney, activist, litigator, Black woman, incredible visionary, gave us some of the most pragmatic lessons. You know, she said, look, I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm not going to, you know, we can't sugarcoat this. It's going to be hard. She said, it's going to be real hard. And the analogy that she gave us was, she said, folks, this is planting season. This is planting season. This is going to be a time for us to go deep, deep, deep with our values for the harvest to come. It's planting season, you know, and we've been here before. Yesterday, you know, even though this is a time of grieving, a time of great loss of life, of war making, of enemy making, even though it is these kind of times and these conditions, we found ourselves at the beach with our feet in the sand, with Tina Calderon singing into our hearts. And we had the Pacific Ocean as a backdrop, and the dolphins dancing in the oceans, telling us, it's gonna be all right. Get your perspective right. Look around you. Yes. And even in these treacherous, mean-spirited times, I mean, folks are vicious. I've not seen anything like that in my lifetime. I am the first generation after the civil rights movement, and we were supposed to reap the benefits of those folks' hard work. I've never seen this in my life. The meanness, the hatred. And even as we are holding that, we were dancing yesterday. We were dancing a dance that is informed by everybody who danced before us. And I just want to do a shout out to one John Rooney, because when some of us were, and by some of us I mean me, going to the right when we should have been going to the left, going to the left when we should have been going to the left. And the funny part about it is I was so into the fan, and you know, when you put the fan up, you're just, all you got to do is put the white side out, you know, just go like this. Yeah, you know, you just go like this, just turn the wrist. I couldn't get that right. John Rooney had it down. So I just followed John, but we were dancing and our hearts were full. It's a both and scenario, folks, and we've been here before. We got this. It's a both and scenario. So that's why we're having this conversation. What do we do when the ground is shifting beneath us? We stand steady, and sometimes we lean on the folks to our right and to our left. And if John Rooney's the person next to you, you'll not miss a beat. And sometimes, because it will happen, you will fall to the ground and drop to your knees, and They will pick you up. We'll be there for each other. Okay, welcome this incredible panel. Folks, I'm gonna come on up. Amal, come on up. Donna, come on up. Let's get together. All right. You all find your seats and let's get comfortable. And listen, I've been working in the theater community since 2008, and I still say, I'm not a theater person. But what the theater folks have taught me is find your light. Everybody find your light. Okay, are we good? Everybody? Okay. We're going to have a good conversation here. Listen, as I started out saying, we're on these shifting platelets beneath our feet, and you all know better than most, because of the work that you do and your perspectives, what some of that feels like. And I want to just say, we're not putting you up and propping you up here as any kind of experts. We're all going to be in this conversation together, right? We're just looking for diversity of perspectives. So thank you for saying yes to this invitation. Okay. So let's get into this conversation. We're sitting in a circle together. We're just all sitting in a circle. And we're going to have a conversation with the folks out there in a minute, and even the folks online. But just for us to kick it off, I have a couple of prompts. And we started these conversations a couple of days ago, and I want to just go back to that prompt because it was so evocative for us, particularly when things feel there's so much precarity, and we are watching people just be disappeared. We are contending with a state that it's not even a stretch of the imagination, but by all the evidence, is out to get most of us in this room. In times like that, how are we defining home? What do we mean by it, and how are we defining it for ourselves to stay steady?
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for setting this amazing space. It's really wonderful to be up here with you all. Thank you for saying we're not experts. I've been stressing about that all day. And I think I just want to start with my own land acknowledgement. My family's village in Palestine, Malul, which was ethnically cleansed in 1947. And, it's really moving to be in this space. The sense of home, growing up, Palestine was always described as back home. I grew up in a very small town in the United States in Montana. And back home was just this place that I didn't have a real sense, and I always felt that I didn't belong. I think I've recently learned some of the terms to help me understand what happened to me, but growing up, I really didn't know. So things that have helped me are things like the violence of assimilation, erasure, I think the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, which is ongoing, the violence. It does make me feel like people are out to get me if they knew who I was, so I spent a lot of time hiding it. And it's been a journey to get to this point, to be able to say I'm Palestinian. And I just also want to say, this state, the United States, the state violence that is enacted on people is not unrelated to what's happening in Palestine. Our country funds it. And it's, I watched a video a couple days ago. Some of you may have seen, it's actually olive harvest time in Palestine, and a lot of Palestinians in the West Bank are trying to go harvest their olives. And this woman was beaten with like a stick. It was caught on video. She's, in her 60s. And it's like, and they're saying the settlers, and it's the language, it's settler colonialism. People like to make it seem like it's about religion, but it is settler colonialism alive and well, which happened in this country, which continues to happen. And I really envision a world where we can get rid of it, you know, these systems of power, erasure, land, greed, resources, you know, it's like, I think these are the spaces that, I don't know, it's, I'm shaking. It's scary to talk about these things. And I really, I'd like to stop talking now. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge. Okay, I'm loud anyway. Oh, there we go. No, it's golden. I just want to acknowledge my posture right now. This is a deep sofa, and I can't have dangling. I'm dangling feet up here. We've, of course, I've been meditating and stressing a little bit about this panel this time. As I process through it, the words that pop out are displacement and home, right? Thematically speaking. Tonight, for the first time, I heard when the ground is shifting. We love a good analogy. I'm a somatic person. I'm a visual person. And I've heard that the first time I heard that phrase tonight, and each time peppered, I could see it more clearly. Standing on something, and I was thinking, okay, somatically, what happens first? And for me, what made sense in my body is my knees get soft, and I thought, oh, that's different than how I exist, which is here, and it's wide stance, and it's like, oh, the knees get soft, and you try to find the ground, and you come closer, and at what point do you just say yes to it? Right now, we're just not going to know. Personally, I'm in a season like that. I am co-artistic director of Watts Village Theater Company, which is in, thank you. 65 years, y'all, we still here. Okay, we're still here. And for those of you who are not from LA or don't know, Watts is in South LA. It's right next to Compton. It has all the folklore and the history that South LA has. I use that term folklore. Yeah. God, the pandemic just tore us apart. In our theater company, we used to say that we exist. So that we're here, so you don't have to be there, is what we used to say, right? And during the pandemic, we were like, everyone come here, and we'll figure it out, but please don't be out there. Please don't use this time to be out there, right? And right now, ever since things opened up again, we don't have the resources, and I just hate that we need their yes in order to do our work. And for our community, we do. We don't have donors and benefactors and stuff. But since we came back, we don't have that home, we don't have our space, our company is elsewhere. The kids have all gone on and we don't know where they are. We used to be able to foster them and help them get into school and all that stuff, and we don't know where they are. And I don't know all the aunties anymore. And it's a microcosm of the larger picture. Right. But the question I think was, how do you have home, define home in this shifting world? And I don't mean to jump any part of it, but in a previous conversation, I think it was you, Amal, that talked about how home is a spirit, or there's a soul part to it, right? There's a reverb. And when I am in Watts and I look up at that Watts Tower, which some people might call a tower of trash, I remember where I'm standing in the bones of it, right? And I'm like, okay, inside of a bone is the marrow, and that's home. And so when I think about the shifting, I'm gonna bring it around. When I think about the shifting ground underneath us, right? And I think about the knees getting soft, and I think about getting close to the ground, I have to remember that there are bones and bones and bones and bones, right? There to hold and to steady, and that I'm not the first person to have been on this shaky ground, and that we stand on the shoulders again and again and again. And I am finding myself in my season as well, and for my community, stepping off the shifting ground into the ether, because I feel like the home is not where I last I saw it, last I laid it, right? Like if the home is the spirit, the thing inside the marrow, I have the bones I'm standing on the shoulders of. I'm gonna go ahead and step out into into home, which I'm doing this because like it looks like an abyss out there with the lights and such. You know what I mean? But isn't that it though, right? Because isn't that it though, right? Because y'all are home on the other side of it. And so that's, I don't know if I answered the question. How do you find home? You stand on the shoulders of those who are there, who have found it, who have sought it, who are there with you trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
The answer is I don't know.
Hey, that's right. Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. I am like so humbled to be here with all of you, to be invited. Thank you, Alex, for having included me into this space. Um, Earlier, I had the privilege of having dinner with like these beautiful panelists, and as the sun was setting, this group of geese, I think they were geese, they flew over us in a V, like literally you can see the V. I don't know if anyone else saw that, you know? It was so beautiful. And then I looked at the moon and it's like this sliver of a crescent. And then right before we came here, Amal and I were on the little studio space over there. And, you know, we were reflecting on the panel and we just held hands and shared an embrace. You know, I'm naming these moments because that's home, you know, like when the ground is shifting. I think I've learned how to be imaginative enough to identify home when the exterior world tells me that there's no home. I think especially also, you know, as an undocumented person, I've been living here since I was 12. I'm 33 now, and I'm still undocumented. And a lot of my friends and I who are still undocumented, we joke like, "Wow, we're still undocumented," you know. And um, you know, like in many ways, some of us try to, some of us like emotionally feel a sense of rootedness and home in the communities where we live in right now. For example, for myself, the San Fernando Valley, the 818 will be my home always, but the the state, like the country that we live in, like it doesn't want us, you know? So it's almost like, you know, it's like this extremely awful one-sided relationship where you identify with a place, but the place doesn't actually want you, or not the place itself, but you know what I mean, you know? And um, I think with that realization, you know, home has always been so complex and daunting to reflect on. And I think I learned how to create home literally with people that I just met like 2 hours ago in person. You know what I mean? Because that is the way to find survival, that moment of love. You know, I think that's home.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Hi. Yater Nijanavige Yinishye, Nakainishle, Hashkrishni Vashishchin, Keshvadasache, Chodichini Dashanale. Even though there's only one person that I know of that understands that Navajo introduction, I do so because my family has fought really hard to have our language and have our, waves of kinship. And so that introduction is the introduction of my mom's side of the family, my dad's side of the family, and then my dad's my maternal grandmother, my paternal grandmother. We are a matrilineal society, the Navajo, so everything goes mom first. You want daughters, and speaking of mom, when I first hear the word home, I think wherever my mom is, honestly. And she is not here in Los Angeles with me. She lives in Tucson, Arizona. But yeah, wherever she is, honestly, and wherever in the world she is, that's where home is. But something that I talked to Carmen about before was this reclamation of home. Indigenous people, a lot of our teachings and culture and community is rooted in land and rooted in place. And so, yeah, the Navajo Nation to me is a home of sorts. But it's also a reservation and a confined area, right? That my ancestors experienced the long walk, and that sort of genocide that I know, Amal, you understand so deeply, and especially in this moment where we're seeing it on social media every day. Um, I think there's a reclamation that has to happen in order to say, yeah, I am home. This is the community that I'm in. And I work at the Chapter House, which is an Indigenous Navajo women-led organization here in Los Angeles. And we are constantly reclaiming space and reclaiming home, and the idea that there can be one space where we all come together in times of struggle, and also in times of celebration, because I think that's another part of it. I was in organizing spaces for a long time, and we would only come together when something was wrong. And so coming together when something was happy and joyful, or someone got a new job, or I don't know, married, or something like that joy is so important to the idea of home, and something that I really ground myself in, especially in these times. It's important to find joy, and that's something that I'm really close to my family, and my mom and I will text every morning, and she'll send me a picture of like a little toy or something she saw, and she'll say, "My joy today." And so every day we're finding joy somehow, even when we're witnessing genocide on our phones, even when we're seeing and worried about our family members who are just, going to work or going to school. We're finding joy. And I think that can be so radical. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to add to that, Don?
Inspired.
Yeah.
Just hearing the roots. Here I'm reminded that we've always been in shifting ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From the arrival of the
That's
ships,
right.
and then we've got the middle passage, and we've redefined home, and we've sort of touched on this in the, when we talked before, but the first thing they do is they take you up, right? Like the first thing they do is they remove you in the middle of the night. They remove you from your beds, right? Like in Chicago, right? They remove you from your place of work. They say, no place is safe. I'm gonna yank you up. And they put you in a place where you are alone. Often you don't have access to the food and the culture, right? That makes you you. You don't have access to your community that makes you you, your family. When my ancestors came over, they put us, we didn't speak the same languages, it was you. And by that, they rip away your identity. And if you rip away someone's identity, you make them nameless, just another number, right? When you lock them up, then you can do whatever you want, right? And yet we are all in this room because we have figured out how to make home again and again and again. And like you're saying, this is home again.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and that I'm in a season where I've got to fight for hope, and that is like that's what I was saying before, like, oh, we've been here. Ooh, we've been here with less resources than we currently have. We've been here with more I think finite understanding of community, limited means of community, right? We can now go online and meet our people. There are people all over the world watching right now. That's the resilience. It's in our blood. It's in our bones, and we don't have a choice. because there are people coming after us too.
Wow, you all, thank you for opening up with such vulnerability. Thank you for that. I mean, I'm just looking at the four of you and feeling like this is a little circle here, but I know there's an extended community out there. So thank you for trusting us. I want to pick up on some threads that I feel you all put down around resilience, around how we stay rooted. But before we do that, I want to talk about the stuff that you'd never found in a book anywhere, that you heard either your grandmother, somebody, auntie, that medicinal thing that nobody else seems to know about except yo people, I want to go there because for some reason I just feel like that's kind of connected to something, right? Some ancestral wisdom, some way of making a way. And I'm gonna lead it by sharing with you two things that in my family that like I just grew up with my folks. One from my mother. No matter what was going on, just go get a wet washcloth, put it on your forehead, and lay down. Okay, y'all know I don't care what. Mom, I just skinned my knee. Go get a wet washcloth, put it on your forehead, and go lay down. And I mean, it would work. My father there's a plant that we would always have in our yard, no matter where we were. We would pick that plant up when we would move from this duplex to someplace else, and we'd have it going in the yard. And if you had a burn, he would cut that plant open and put it on the burn. Sometimes he would scoop out the middle of it and make it into some sort of paste or tea. And they called it single Bible. They're like, let's just go get a piece of single Bible. Sean, you know what I'm talking about. It turns out it's aloe vera, right? It's aloe vera. So what is that you know that you all do? Maybe it's just your people, your clan, or, what is that medicinal thing that nobody else seems to maybe not know about? I really got to hear that from y'all. And then we're going to get into rootedness.
I can go. Well, as soon as you were talking, Navajos, corn pollen, tatatin is very sacred to us. And so you hold tatatin in your right hand and you lead with it as a way of like peace. But in your left hand, or in your less dominant hand, whatever that one is, you hold an arrowhead in case you need to fight someone. So you're always leading, or your more dominant hand, tatatin, tatatin, I'm peace, I'm one with the force is with me, something like that. It's from Star Wars. And then, but my lightsaber could come out.
That's right.
So I like that one.
I like that. Thank you. Appreciate that. I feel you said.
I'm thinking about I don't have an extended family here in the U.S. because of my family status. So my mom always tells me these anecdotes of her growing up in the Philippines, in rural Philippines in the 60s. No television, no phones, like just climbing up trees. I'm like, Mom, you climbed trees when you were a little kid. She would talk about how when, she would, like when the first time she had Jamaica, the drink, in the Philippines, the what's it called in English? Hibiscus flowers called gumamela. Apparently, when she was a little kid, they used gumamela as something to play with. But the medicinal thing, that every Filipino that I know really swears upon is ginger tea. Like, and I was reading this New York Times article about the one, like this was like two months ago or 3 weeks ago. It was like the wonders of ginger that ginger does to your stomach. I'm like, y'all, where have you been? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
we knew this all along, so y'all, ginger.
Exactly. Love it. You don't have to have one, but if you do, please feel free.
Well, this thing on. Okay. I think, I mean, I can't let it pass without saying olive oil.
Oh,
for
come on. Exactly.
everything. I don't even have to explain really. But also, I have a really weird memory of like peroxide being used a lot in my house growing up. I don't think it was necessarily Palestinian. But so, anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
Donna.
would say castor oil,
Of course.
which
Of course.
also heals anything that may happen. I mean, somebody hurt
Exactly.
your feeling, come over here, take some castor oil.
Exactly.
But I've always been an insomniac and I'm nocturnal. And when I was younger, my dad was a very cold man, and when I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't sleep, he'd come to my bed and he would put castor oil in my hair, and he would just carve out like tic-tac-toe. And he would scratch my head all the way down and all the way down and all the way across and all the way across. And he would just keep going, and I would count and I'd fall asleep. And I have a 9-year-old, and I've started to, that's part of our evening ritual too, he's got locks. And so I put my fingers in his hair with some castor oil and argan oil, you know, we catch up the day, and yeah.
Yes. Yes, folks. Absolutely. These are the spaces that we tend, and it brings us home. You know what I mean? It's the things that we don't have to explain to other folks. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Again, you all started to move in this direction around what keeps us rooted and grounded. And oh my gosh, Nijoni, I really appreciated the way you talked about celebration, because it's not just all about, you know, we don't have anything but this sorrow and this misery. I want to go there. You know, I want to go towards those places that keep us rooted. Earlier today, folks, we've been here. This is day 3. We have had some incredible moments. Earlier today, one of the dreaming exercises that we did was in smaller groups, folks went to different portals and imagined new worlds or worked with clay and created new vessels. And one of the groups was defense, you know, how to embody your core and, you know, push folks out of your space that, you know, you need to protect. And they, you know, they taught us a couple of things. So I want to go to that. How do you stay rooted and grounded? What does that look like for you? And maybe even what is the practice? You know, what is the practice that you do? Let's share that with each other, because, you know, that's what time it is, right? So what do we have for each other to keep us rooted, grounded, our core, you know, our stance?
I'll go. I think it's like these practices are always evolving, you know, and I think through different phases of my life, I do different things. But what I'm currently practicing right now is, you know, I've become aware of how much like existential shame I have. This feeling that like I'm not good enough, the feeling that I have to prove myself, that I have to, I don't know, just like sort of a guilt for being like survivor's guilt, or a guilt for being alive. I've carried it with me all my life. I think it's part of the legacy of, you know, what has happened in Palestine, but also like what's happened in Palestine is a universal story, you know, it's not a singular act. And I do want to say, I really appreciate, you know, it hasn't always been like this for speaking out for Palestine. I think the way that the world has been shifting, you know, and the recognition of the interconnectedness of our experiences. I mean, yeah. So I just,
It's about time.
I'm, thank you.
It's about time. You've been waiting for us. You all? Yeah. It's about time. Thank you.
Thank you. It just hasn't always felt like we've we belong. I mean, I remember going to BIPOC spaces and feeling like, am I allowed here? You know? So what was I saying? What was the question? I'm gonna start crying. I'm rooted. Oh, what I do, what?
Coming from a place of sorrow and misery, that we have things that are people.
Yes. I'm really, what you always hear is you have to learn to love yourself. And, I've had people say, write it on your mirror, I love you, so that you see it every day. And I even tell people to do that. I did it for like 2 days, maybe 5 years ago. I'm like, got it, check. But I don't think I really did it. And I think I'm finally ready. I'm tired. Like, I'm really tired of carrying this guilt and shame. There's a Palestinian poet who wrote, those of you who live must live. And I want to do that. I want to learn how to do it. So I am practicing actively, like learning to love myself and looking in the mirror and saying, I love you. And I don't know if I'm getting there, but I just feel like I'm like quoting people, but James Baldwin said, it took me years of vomiting out all the filth that I believed about myself before I could walk upright as if I belonged here. We all belong. There's been this narrative that we don't belong. And I just want to say the other thing that it's like this whole system of nation states, it's a construct, they're constructs, and it really is not fair if everyone doesn't have a place, and this feeling that we're in places that we're unwanted is just like, to carry that is a very heavy burden. And I'm tired of letting other people tell me that I don't belong and that I don't deserve love and that I'm not enough. So that's my rootiness.
Thank you, Amal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, breath. My gosh. My heart is full.
I can share. Thank you so much, Amal, for naming. Speaking of quoting people, to what Carmen was saying about rootedness, everything you just said, Amal, reminded me of this Maori Indigenous scholar. I don't know if anyone here has ever read Decolonizing Methodologies by Linda Tuhiwai Smith. She talks about like 25 Indigenous projects, and I think Project 20 or something like that. She talks about remembering. She says the remembering of a people relates not so much to the remembering of an idealized golden past, but rather a painful past and people's responses to that pain. I'm reflecting on that in relation to rootedness because whenever I hear people, especially like white Americans, to be honest, like talk about like, this is the worst time in the history of the world. I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, I say this because when times get really rough, I reflect on who my ancestors were when the Spanish came to the Philippines and decided to like take over and make people like doubt like what you're saying about identity, erase your sense of identity. I was reading this other I'm doing research right now also about Philippine-US relations, and they were saying when the Spanish came to the Philippines, they used religion to colonize. When the Americans came to the Philippines, they used education as this sense of education, this pedagogy of like, go to the West and get, educated through the ways of the West. That's also colonization. Yeah. And I'm naming all of this because right now, like when things get really difficult, I'm like, I pray to my ancestors and ask them, hey, like when things were tough, like what did you think about? some time ago, I wrote this poem, and like the last few stanzas says, I think about, I wonder how those before me pulled through. They search for something better than the past, the present that we're living in right now. They didn't fight. They were thinking of us, you know? So for me, like what roots me is thinking about who were my ancestors who were generous enough to think about the future that is me now. So how can I think about the future also, the future generations, the young children right now who have so many more years of life to live than me? How can I make sure that I steward this life that I have, use every ounce of life force that I can to find a way that, the 2-year-old who's out there right now can have a better life than me.
Yeah.
That goes really well into what roots me is our youth. Yeah, so in addition to the chapter house, I work at the Lindy Waters III Foundation. Lindy Waters III is one of 3 Native American basketball players currently playing in the NBA. He has a foundation in which we do all things centered around Native youth, particularly in Oklahoma, rural Oklahoma. And so I run a college prep program through there, and I love meeting with our youth who continue to inspire me and know way more than me about what's going on in Palestine and what's happening all around the world. They know about everything, and they give me so much hope. And I find a lot of comfort in work. I know that sometimes that's like a double-edged sword, but yeah, my family, we're all big workaholics, usually because that is how we survive, is through working all the damn time. But we were just in Japan in April, and I learned, my partner actually, who's here, he taught me about this thing called ikigai, which is like your calling, like finding your thing that you're meant to do in this world. And I think this community work that we do is that for me, and it is work, but it gives back to me, and it gives back to my family, and so many people. And yeah, I mean, I love mentoring students to, helping them submit their applications and meet their deadlines, and that's all fun. But hearing the day to day of these kids' lives and that they are experiencing, I'm the granddaughter. 3 of my 4 grandparents experienced boarding school, right? Like schools are very traumatizing. The idea to go to this like primarily white institution, higher education, right? Like very scary. And that they just have such hope and light in their eyes it helps me continue to go forward, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
I as a somatic person, I'm always fascinated. I think often that we all came here and we brought our music with us. You know what I mean? We brought our songs with us, and especially for my ancestors, I think about how we discovered that we all knew some of the same songs, like how we all knew some of the same rhythms. You know what I mean? Or what happened in the church on Sunday when the white church went, and then we were forced to go. What happened in that place where the song and dance happened, right? Or I go sometimes online and I'm like, I know that dance. The people look different, but they look the same. You're right, And for me, talking about the stripping of identity, right? And then that thing in your bones. But like what roots me is the music and the songs of the sorrow, the pain, the joy, the celebration, the resiliency, and our shared songs, our shared chants. When we get together, we find our way we find our ebbs and
I feel a
flows in
song
music,
coming.
and
Come
that.
on, come
That's
on.
what I'm saying, right?
I feel a song coming.
And I'm telling you, when it's I was thinking about that earlier. In the last year, I have been unmoored is the word I think of often, uprooted, unmoored. I was asked to leave my home about almost a year ago to the day. And I've been in a place that doesn't feel at all like home. It's sometimes it's terrifying. The sanctuary is not there. The rest isn't there. I feel alone. I feel isolated, you know. And I had a situation in August that where I thought I thought I had to leave that home, you know, and I've never experienced anything in my life like this. I'm in a growing season for sure. I'm in a riotous season spiritually, but after that happened, I was like, whoa, I almost lost this place that seemed so foreign to me, and why don't I just call it home? I'm just gonna call it home. I'm gonna light my incense. I'm gonna open the windows. I'm gonna look online how to hang this shit straight so it doesn't all look crazy up there on my walls, you know? And when I open the window, there's a school across the street and the kids, and they play music, and they play Black Eyed Peas every day at lunch, the little ones, you know? And sometimes they have like special clowns come, and they got dancers sometimes on birthdays, and I was like, oh, right, the music. So I can be in a thing, and I can be terrified, and I can be writing a paper bureaucracy, whatever. And then I'm like, right, Bebo. And I'm like, right, yeah, right. Because I can say yes to that moment. And so it's that, whatever that thing is that we all share culturally, the sense of I got to get up and move, and I can make that decision to move. And it might be hard. It is hard to talk about this shit sometimes, you know, and I can just do it. And I would say that from August to now, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a friend, and I was like, my place feels really good. My place starting to feel like home.
Yeah.
And yeah, open that window, y'all.
Yes.
I opened the window.
Absolutely. Let's take a breath, you know? Just take a breath. I feel the love, and I feel us tapping into past pain, trauma. Our ancestors are with us, but still, you know, their pain and their trauma is with us. So I just support you. Thank you all. Getting real vulnerable. We did say that. And this, though, they can't take from us. You know, they can't take that. Okay. I have one more question, but I want to be fair because I want you all to ask some questions that you have of each other. And then there's some folks out here that have questions. So I don't want to be too selfish. I just have this one more question that I want to ask you all because I've been thinking about this. I've been preoccupied by this question. And I think I might have floated it past a couple of you already. But because there are so many communities being targeted right now, I've been thinking about solidarity. You know, I've been thinking about solidarity building, and it's, you know, I'm like, if there ever were a time for us to have the biggest, baddest, broadest base ever, it would be now. Like, who isn't feeling targeted right now to some degree, you know? So I've been thinking about solidarity building, base building, and could this be a moment where we like get an immovable base, you know, for generations to come? What do you all think about that? You know, is this that time? Could that be something that we're doing? And if so, you know, what does it look like? And we don't have to finish that conversation right now, but I've been thinking about that. I've been preoccupied by that. What do you all think? You know, and it could be that we're just not ready for that because right now we're just in survival mode. I mean, can we just have a little tiny discussion around that?
There was one thing that we talked about when you spoke about this, Carmen, that was super interesting to me. And I sort of see it as like two circles, like one big circle and then a little circle inside of it. And what I was explaining to Carmen was that so my first job in college was working at the King Institute. And so it's like the largest compilation of civil rights documents in the whole entire world, housed in a trailer at Stanford University. And now we have a building. But it wet during my time. We were in trailers, and I loved it there. And something that we were constantly talking about as students, as BIPOC students, at this PWI, was our the generations before us fought for this desegregation, and it seems like at school though, when we show up and we're in our ethnic themed dorm, or when we see we're in the big cafeteria, it seems like we kind of self-segregate a little bit, right? And I think only because it's so freeing and just like, oh gosh, I can just relax and rest and not have to explain yourself, right, to the person next to you. They already know, even if it's someone from a different reservation or Alaska or the Pacific or something, right? Like, you kind of already have a sense. And I think that if we have solidarity and we want to have this broad solidarity, it's super important. And now is the time for it. If there ever, it's now. But it also requires some spaces that are, just for, the Native folks or, whatever it is, right? Like, because sometimes I do need that safe space where I don't have to explain myself to anyone. And when we were talking about that, I was like, wow, that is really important, right? And so just thinking of what if we have that broad solidarity, what type of learning are we all opting into, and also like unlearning are we opting into to be good relatives to each other in that space.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Because don't you think that's why it's been a long time coming? Yeah, because there is a lot of learning and unlearning to do. And then, I mean, this is, again, a whole nother conversation. I really want to follow up on this, because then it's like, and who's got to do all that teaching? Okay, what do you all think? And again, you don't have to, we're not going to solve it today.
Well, I'll just weigh in that I mean, I really like the new term that people are using, which is the global majority. I think, even the term like white, it's like, what does that even mean? What does BIPOC mean? I mean, I am more and more, I feel like we all have, like, we're so fixated on differences. Like, the world feels very, what am I trying to say? Like, I feel like at some point we all just need to agree that we're all humans, and there's like a global, like, we accept everyone is human, no matter what the conflicts look like. The stopping of dehumanization means you listen to people, even if they're angry, even if they seem to be behaving in a way that does, it's like believing the victims. I think we all have to do that for our communities. And I just also want to second the finding spaces where I don't have to explain myself is just, it's so rare. And, I do feel that here. It's like, maybe we don't all know exactly what happened, and we don't all know the history. And, Martin Luther King said, we need to start having the courage to not actually know everything. That's what's scary, but we do have to start believing each other. People don't make oppression up. They don't resist oppression just because they're violent or savage or uncivilized. There is an interconnectedness to all of our struggles. And, I'm at the point in my life where I don't question that at all. But I do think there's another frontier beyond ethnicity and race, which is sexism, that also needs to be addressed at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just gonna follow up on.
Sorry, I just want to say I'm in.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
I'm in. Okay.
For the big, broad-based solidarity building moment. Okay, thank you, Seth.
No. Thank you so much for that, Amal. I was just gonna, I'm just reflecting on, you know, I think solidarity cannot be talked about without, and this is my experience at least, it's for me, it's become impossible to talk about solidarity without putting in a lens of intersectionality and interdependence. I'm saying this because I've been organizing around immigrant rights, immigrant justice since I was 18. And, even in these moments, I'm realizing how the immigrant rights movement often doesn't really uplift the experience of, like mainstream immigrant rights movement doesn't really uplift the experience of trans undocumented people, especially also, I think in most movements, that I've experienced, also the experiences of disabled people in particular is rarely uplifted. And this has been an area where I've had so much growing to do the last few years, thanks to my mentors like Conchita Hernandez Legoreta, Kutsia Naki, Cheryl Green, all these amazing folks, you know. And in the spirit of disability justice, one of the tenets of disability justice, as established by this organization since Invalid, they talk about interdependence as an antidote to this pressure to always be independent, because none of us can do everything on our shoulders, and how can that spirit, we can't do anything just on our own shoulders. That's solidarity, and that is interdependence on each other. And maybe like just a more concrete way, like when I hear solidarity, especially when I was a younger person, I was like, how the hell do you put that into practice? I think sometimes solidarity is thought about through the lens of helping somebody else. You have more, let me help you out, kind of situation. Um, I'm reflecting on this poem called Kindness by Palestinian American poet Naomi Shihab Nye. I don't know if anyone has ever read Naomi Shihab Nye. She's amazing. I love her. On her, the third stanza of Kindness goes something like, "To know kindness as the deepest thing, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing." I'm saying this because when we're in solidarity with each other, it's because we see that the other person can also be us at some point in our lives, and by standing into our values to love the people next to us in a way that's also a form of salvation for our own selves.
Right. Oh, yeah. John Faroa is a choreographer that's he's currently in Costa Rica, but he's based out of New York, and he does a lot of like theater based movement stuff, and he's got this really beautiful piece that's called The Voices, and it starts out with just people standing side by side, and they try to make like a grid, right? They try to make they try to connect and they can't. They can kind of only come here. And then as the piece goes on, they can sort of do an arm and great. And now we're kind of touching arms. And if you put yours out, oh, and then we have, oh, wait, hold on. Now we have a little bit of, we can support something here, right? Then somebody else's arm. Oh, wow, we can hold some more. And as the piece grows, they end up in this beautiful woven tapestry. And at that moment, they have these different objects that fall from the sky, and they hold it. They just expand and they come together, and they expand and they come together. And I think about growing up, they had that like the We Are the World, like all the kids around the earth holding hands. And I imagine that we're more like reaching across here and making this tapestry where we can hold, right? Because we're stronger that way, we can fortify that way. And I think that we've always needed it, and we've always just done it. We've done this in our individual communities. I mean, Watts is a sovereign, unincorporated city, you know what I mean? And that's fought the police off and said, we got it. Don't you worry. Our community leaders got this. You gonna call it a riot. We call it a rebellion. Yeah. But don't you worry. You stay on the outside. And they sure did. Yeah. They sure did stay out of Watts and let them handle their own. And guess what happened the Saturday after that rebellion, that riot? Then the pastors came out. And they went door to door and they said, come on, we need the music and the dance, right? We got, and the whole, everything around, there was a riot the night before. And and people opened the door and they went to church, right? And so, yeah, I think that is the only way. I think that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
And gosh, am I
Yeah.
grateful? Am I grateful for the
Absolutely.
arms that reach across and can hold that weight that you don't even know is coming?
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
That's
thank you,
right.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's right. Absolutely. Community building. Yes. It's a both and. It's just, I mean, I'm listening to this incredible tapestry right here of yes, we need that specificity to be seen, and for that person who sees you to know that experience. There's something that's incredible about that. And then absolutely to have that broad understanding, that divine kind of human, universal, if you will, understanding. And it's going to take a minute to get there because, like, I want to see everybody as human, but there's some, systemic structural stuff that just have to be dealt with. And it didn't have to be that way. I keep going back to that. It didn't have to be. It could have been a whole different vision. Okay, friends, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, just a breath and a pause. You all were just bringing, the wisdom, the ancestral wisdom so fast. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I want to breathe in this piece right here. So I want to just give us a moment to breathe because you all, thank you for just bringing yourselves here with us. Appreciate you. And I want to give you a chance to just think about what's been coming up for you. Some of the questions you've been turning around, and looking for an opportunity for a space like this to just try some things on. If you all want to ask those questions of each other, and even of our community out here. I want to give you all a little bit of a space before we then open it up for just a big, conversation, a big Q&A. So we'll start with you first.
So I'm just breathing in the moment. I actually have no questions. I just want to, these days, like my fear and anxiety, like when I go to therapy every Tuesday, my therapist's like, "You're anxious every week." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." I've been anxious since yes, it's wild, but especially today, this sense of gratitude overpowers my sense of anxiety and fear. Like I feel so blessed right now, to be honest. So I just want to say thank you all for the beauty and the magic. Just thank you all. Wow, I have no questions. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely.
Okay, I have a question. And this is also for people out there, and I'm going to try to say this in the right way. I'm going to try to make this, and if I misspeak, if I step on a toe, please correct me, and I apologize. I have a really hard time understanding the immigrant or the migrant experience when it comes to the U.S. And the media is full of people who are being ripped from their home and dropped places that are not home, right? Some of them have roots there, some of them don't. Some of them are just in a random country where they dropped them. And I'm looking at this, I'm looking at these people and they're sobbing and they're being ripped from, and I wonder, this place don't want you. How is this home? And I can't speak for, all Black people, but in my experience, I have a really hard time calling the U.S. America home. Like I'm sure if we ended up in some war or something, I might wave a flag then. But currently I'm good. And so I would just I want to know. And I'm going to say it. I don't always. I'm going to just say it absolutely. There's no space here for us often, right? We are silenced. We are put in cages. We're fed slop, right? We're called names, right? We're put in areas that no one should live in, right? And forgotten about. So, and I understand. Yes, I'm going to say, can you tell me how this is home? And how you left home for this home?
Okay. Yeah.
I can speak from not direct experience, but from the Minnesota community in general, and the immigration to the United States. A lot of countries were destroyed by the United States military, a lot of and involvement. So people are fleeing, but the instability, I think, you said it on the call when we were speaking before, like uh, the creation of instability, and then you lose your home. I can't remember exactly what you said, but I think, what we've done to this world, colonialism, imperialism, it's just destroyed home everywhere, really. And I think this country is no exception to other countries. I mean, I think they're, like you said, we built this. It could have been built a different way. It still can be built a different way, if there was the will. And I think a lot of it is partially, I think it's unlearning. Like, honestly, like exile breeds nationalism. I think Edward Said said that. This patriotism and this idea that some people belong and some people don't, it just it's just destroying our planet, I think, and the environment also, and the militaries and the guarding and the resources and the borders and the way that this world has been built. I think very few people actually feel a sense of safety in their home, except for maybe certain countries that are like neutral. So
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and propaganda does wonders, right? Like there's this romanticization of the United States and like this better life, and opportunity is a word I hear a lot too. And I think that when people get here, that can sort of all fade away very fast. And my grandfather is Quechua. He's from Peru, and his first language was Quechua. His siblings spoke Quechua. And at 5 years old, right, he's ripped from his family and put into this Catholic boarding school and taught Spanish for the very first time. But then, because of those experiences and forced assimilation into colonial Spanish boarding school, he's like, I don't know if I want to go back to my village, right? Instead of the Basco, maybe I'm gonna work really hard and learn from the people, the geological engineers at Machu Picchu, and I'm gonna get to America and I'm gonna do this, and I think there's uh, speaking directly from his experiences, there's a sort of disillusion that happens after you get here, and it's hard because you meet people, fall in love, have family and things, a lot of people, but that's my one like immigrant perspective, and it's just one of my grandparents. But yeah, I think that's sometimes also what happens.
Does anybody else want to speak to this? I'm looking out here. I can't see if there are any hands, but Seth, I don't want to put it all on you. I know, exactly. That's why we're both looking out here, and maybe not. Oh, okay, Mauricio, how are we doing this with the mics? And should we just pass our mic to you, or do you want to just join us up here? Mauricio, just come on up. I don't know if there's a mic in the audience.
I'm okay. I'm just gonna park it right here to answer this. I'm gonna come a little closer. I'm just gonna park it right here to answer this. Hi, Mauricio. Hi. I don't remember the exact quote, but Frederick Douglass spoke about how human beings have a way of accepting their condition. Because at the end of the day, the condition of the human being is to survive. And that a part of survival requires regulation. If I live in a constant state of anxiety, my body will collapse.
So at some point, my body will regulate, which means that I begin to accept the circumstance that I'm in. And so then I say this both in like a dag nabbit, accepted the state that I'm in, but I also say it to say like, and that's how my DNA has endured. And I'm grateful for all the loved ones who like were in this little box, but they turned to each other and they were like, breathe. Okay, breathing, breathing. Okay, we're good. We'll figure this out. We'll get through this. We'll live, we'll survive. And that turning to one another and breathing together is home. Regulating the body, the nervous system at peace is home. So the nervous system to me, that becomes a first place. And in that way, I can live. I love what you said about mom. My beloveds are my home. And that's anywhere I go. And there isn't another government that has figured it out. So I know that the journey is, I've got to figure that out. And my own folks, they came to this country, different circumstances. And I think that like in this context, at some point, human beings, cannot suffer anymore. And a choice is made. And the suffering and the context that they were in at the time, appreciate what you're talking about here about the U.S. doing this to Colombia and the ways in which my folks were coming from a broken system and that they had to come this way. But there was just propaganda, whatever it may be, it wasn't there for them. Guns were being pointed at people's heads. They had to go. And then they found the enclaves. And to that, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that there are enclaves, that there were people who were like, we're going to make home here, and we're going to call this La Pequeña Habana. It's not even the U.S. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the tiny version of where we were, but we're claiming it here. And my people aren't even Cuban. La Pequeña Habana. Do you know what I mean? But it was still like, we know this, we are of this. So just appreciate the remixing. That there is a remixing that we do to make the song sing, even if it's, you know what I mean? It's a.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask, oh yes, was there somebody else that wanted? Thank you. Thank you, Goldie. Come on, Goldie's gonna. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Hey y'all, what up though? How y'all doing? Hi. This was amazing. Y'all did so good. Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to answer it because I think it's such a dope question, and I think it pulls us back to the question of solidarity. So I am a descendant of Africans that were stolen and enslaved during chattel slavery in America. That's part of my ancestry. So I wonder why we ain't leave. And I think that's the question of solidarity, to get the empathy towards an immigrant and a migrant experience in America. It's a question for us as those descendants. Why didn't we go back to Africa? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, right? So you have a movement of the American Colonization Society that will take you back to Liberia and give you a country.
That's right. Yeah.
And some of us ain't go. Most of us ain't go because we still here. You know what I'm saying? Right. And even through our American citizenship, we have the privilege of traveling the world. Africa's like a real place. Do you see? I live in Harlem. I don't live in Accra. But I call myself or consider myself Pan-African. And so there is that duality of, why don't I deserve the freedom that this country is supposed to give its people, that it's built on? Like, why would I turn from that opportunity? And do I have to go away to get and experience freedom, especially when it's a place that America has already ruined? And I think as proud of a Pan-Africanist as I am, as proud of as a race woman as I am, when I went to South Africa, when I went to Ghana, when I went to those places, I was American. And I had to make the decision of if that was going to be shame, if that was going to be pride, or was that going to be connection? You know, and I think that for me, what the only reason why I'm up here speaking is because it echoed the question about the big wide base. is that it's not America we're seeking, it's freedom. And this country was built on a promise that it would give people who landed here freedom. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's
Yeah.
Thank
Some
you.
people.
I want to do a church
Thank
run.
you.
I want to go. Oh, come on now.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to come back to something that Goldie said, but I felt some energy here first. And I want to also see if there's any other additions before I speak to what Goldie just said. Yes. Did you want to add something? Okay, yeah.
I was gonna love.
Okay. I feel your energy.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the word freedom, that the way that the United States uses it, that freedom isn't free. It requires defending, it requires like fighting terrorism, axis of evil, all the like propaganda. And I think that like freedom, you were using it in a different sense. Liberation, yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to like pick on that, the United States, how they say freedom isn't free. But those ridiculous sayings that the United States uses, like, they're speaking about human beings and countries, I don't know. I just wanted to say that. Thank you for what you said, though. That was very
Absolutely.
enlightening to me.
I want to touch upon what Goldie said, and also I want to go back to what Mauricio said. The remix, that just keeps reverberating for me. Goldie, I feel you and everything that you just said, and I want to say that there's this other thing that happens too. I mean, I think that it's complicated. Why don't you go back? How could you come here? They don't want you here. I mean, these are all true. My great grandparents were part of the first wave of migration that left Jamaica to go to Central America, specifically Costa Rica, to be the cheap labor, there to build up the railroad system there in Costa Rica. When they left, they said, we'll be back. They said, we're going to come back home. And they even left stuff, like, we're coming back. And then, it gets complicated, like you just said, beautifully, like, oh, things happen. You're not, like, oh, and now then they had my grandparents. And my grandmother grew up saying, I'm going back home. And she was talking about Jamaica. She's now in Costa Rica. And so that Afro-Caribbean, she's now speaking Spanish and English because, with a Jamaican accent, and then speaking Spanish fluently. It's a remix. And then they had my parents. They don't know nothing about Jamaica, and they called that home too, and have a vision of it. And like, that's where our people are. And there was a level of, well, it was a remix because they also saw themselves as Costa Rican. So when they came to the US in the 60s, with me in tow, they came here for more economic opportunity and said, we're going back home. And for them, this time the back home was Costa Rica. We're all going to retire back in Costa Rica. And they built a life for themselves here and decided, they wanted their kids to have access to everything. It's kind of complicated because what I'm trying to name is at least 3 generations of longing. It isn't just a clean separation, like, we're here now and we're totally good. The stories of back home and the clarity that this is kind of not totally for me. And one last thing I want to say is I kind of don't want to attribute it to any parent because I feel like, I don't want to call them out. But one of my parents still harbors a healthy dose of distrust for this country and taught us, don't trust, hey, this is not for you. So I wanted to say that. And then there was just one more thing that was, so that you're harboring this sense of still betwixt and between. And there was another point around the going back home that I wanted to name, but I think I've made my point. Yeah.
Just wanted to add that. Anybody else? Because that question of immigration, migration, and why are you here if these folks don't want you here? We'll take one more on that, and then I want to, again, keep moving. I want to give the panelists another round of opportunities to ask questions, and then I think we're going to open it up for Q&A. Is that right, or has that shifted? Okay. Yes.
Carmen, y'all have kept it bumping up here, and as time does, when we're in it, it's moving quickly. So if it's okay, I would love to move us to open it up for Q&A. And I'm up here because we are going to invite Carmen to become a part of the panel at this moment. So if there are questions out in the audience, we will run a mic to you, as well as Michael. I know you've been watching the chat. If there are any questions in the chat, we'll take a quick moment to open up the space. Thank you. What about up here? I'm going to repeat the question because apparently some of the mics and those is not reaching the live stream. So the question that was asked is, how would you imagine a new world for all of us?
Ooh. Maybe something that I'm reflecting on in relation also to what Donna Simone, the point that Donna Simone, thank you for that beautiful question, by the way. It was so powerful. Which I think a lot of, people in the undocumented, like there's actually a whole discourse in the undocumented community about leaving the US. It's a very real thing. Like self-deporting, or what do some people call it? I forget. Well, there was like another romantic term that people use, but it's called self-reporting. In other words, but a mentor of mine told me once, "Bloom where you've been planted. Imagine yourself like a dandelion. Life takes you wherever, and wherever it may be, in the grass, in the concrete, on the rooftop of someone's house. Find a way to bloom." And that's kind of like the immigrant experience that I've like come to know, that I didn't have a lot of choices, to be honest. And at some point, it kind of got exhausting. Like there's this idea of learned helplessness. Is anyone familiar with that term? And like you learn how to choose your battles. So to your question, actually, this relates to the. I'm sorry, what was your name? Ruby. Thank you so much, Ruby. I'm sorry. Um, to your point, you know, like I mentioned, like there's a lot of things in my life. Like 95% of the things that happened in my life, I had no choice over. What would it be like if I had more autonomy over my life? What would it be like if each of us, if our parents, ourselves, you know, like having sovereignty over the decisions that happen over our lives, instead of, like billionaires, instead of like the nation state dictating what we should do, how we live our lives, what we do with our bodies. That's the kind of future that I'm putting my life into, so that I can breathe. Like there's like less of a leash on my neck and I have more air that's going into my lungs.
I love that you said that. And I think, speaking to your question, uh, in the like mentorship world where, we're trying to mentor these youth, or I'm being mentored by these elders or whatever it is, there's always like this sort of, for lack of a better word, pipeline. And I think this new world that I envision is that I'm not the only Navajo or Indigenous person in the room, which I find myself always being, right? And I want to see more of us. And I think that sometimes, unfortunately, and I'm speaking from my community very specifically, sometimes our relatives, or like those of us who are Indigenous, we kind of like being the only person in the room. And I don't like that. I don't like that. I want there to actually to be way more of us. And that there needs to be like this ladder that, we don't kick after we get to the top, right? Like we help people up, and to create that world where we are represented everywhere. We are everywhere, right? There is no just like token Navajo girl, right, on the panel, or not like not this, but not this, but it is like a common experience of mine to just be the only one. And then they're like, do you have water? Like I'm always answering these like weird questions to people who have no idea what it is to like live on a reservation, sometimes haul your own water, live in a trailer, live close to, animals, and those just different things like that. And so, yeah, I envision a world where there's more of people like me and there's more people like you everywhere, and we're lifting our friends and our nieces and nephews and everyone. We're lifting them up with us.
I'm just going to interject quickly to behind what you just said is, I know when I see an all white anything, God, it just looks, it's like, what, this doesn't look normal. Okay, I just have to.
I I want to say that it's like I actually had a friend message me on Facebook the other day and be like, "Do you have any hope?" and as someone who is, you know, who does actually engage with my posts. You know, I have a lot of friends that just don't engage with anything I put out on my stories, but he, you know, I think he was like genuinely asking, and I, you know, it's like, I have this, you know, I think I've recently heard the concept of like your sphere of concern and then your sphere of influence. Is that what it is? Concern and influence? Yeah. So, you know, I think I spent a lot of my life like overwhelmed by my sphere of concern and being like, what do I do? You know, but I have sort of in my middle age figured out my sphere of influence. You know, I really like my art practice has been so healing, and really like learning my Palestinian history. A lot of my projects are based in Palestinian, telling Palestinian stories, reclaiming Palestinian narratives, and healing myself. And I can see it healing people around me as well. And it's brought me into contact with other people who are doing their healing work, and communities of people who are holding space for each other. And I think it builds like one person at a time, one heart at a time. I think one thing that has happened is, you know, like I spent so long like mad at the system that I didn't actually do anything. I was just sort of like destroyed by my pain. And I was self-destructing and, you know, immobilized and paralyzed. So I think like that work of being able, it's like speak your voice even if it shakes. Like that's the work, you know, and it also, there's a lot of compassion and forgiveness work that we all have to do, you know, even for our, you know, quote unquote enemies, you know, like, I don't, it's like the oppressed are suffering, but also the oppressor is suffering. They're in a delusional, like fear, paranoia state, you know, and it's really hard, but I do practice like, you know, it's like radical love. Like, I think like we can't kill another person without killing a part of ourselves. As we've said, like we're all interconnected. That does include, like, if we don't want to be dehumanized, we can't actually dehumanize the oppressor, who oftentimes are, like I said, are just fear or hurt people. Like we are all human beings, and if we want to evolve past this like tribalism and us and them, like we all have to do the healing. And I believe it's possible. Like I know healing is possible because I've experienced it, but I don't know, like the place where I don't have hope or could lose hope is I don't know if there's the will. But I know it's possible. So that's where yeah.
This is sort of a whimsical answer, but I think it's the kids do it. Like the kids do it. Like when they meet someone new and they're like they hug and it's their best friend, right? Like when they like share and they share and they share and they share. You know what I mean? Or like when they hear music and like they don't think about whether they can dance or not. They just sort of bounce. You know. It's so weird to be a parent and be explaining these strange concepts that don't make any sense. And I know, and to see and to watch him go, that doesn't make any sense. Like sexism, trying to explain, he's like, but I don't get it. I'm like, baby, I know. It does, honey, I know, I get, you know. Or like yesterday, we ended up explaining colonization a little bit on the drive home from school, and I was like. So you know how like you have your friends, right, at school kind of thing? And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do it? You know? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's the end of it. And so, yeah, I think that I imagine it to be like like kids are on the playground at home, their minds open to learning. And what's that? And how do I learn? And how'd you do that? And where did you, you know, and the question, like I this space feels like that. Like I just met Goldie's my best friend over there, right? Like we met a couple of hours ago. I had a couple of like hugs where you just don't speak. This feels like that. I guess it's not so whimsical because here it is. You know, we just shared some food. Like, yeah.
Yes,
For the live stream, for those who do not have the same endearing thought of home, how do we construct a home for them?
I think that it's right. I think that we get to name it. Like I can say that growing up, I felt like every place was my home, which means no place was my home, but books were my home. You know, the closet that I hid in when I was behind my clothes and reading my books in my whole house. That part was. I know that there are people. Some of my kids in Watts, and the theater was their home. That little building in the Fundi was their home. Um, but a- and And I think it ties into what I've just learned, which is hope is a home, because that's what I heard resounding from my question was like that's what the father is screaming about when he's being forced into a truck, right? It's like the hope is what brought them here, and the hope is what kept them here, and that might that's what they're chasing. And so I wonder. I mean, I can say in this last year I didn't feel like I had home, and the hope was that I would. I don't, yeah.
I want to just quickly thank you for saying that, because that was something that came up for me as well. And I didn't bring it to this space because I am amongst strangers. So I do really appreciate that. And I think, just being really honest about some of our experiences as people who maybe didn't have the best time at home all of the time. I talk about my family and individuals in, a particular way, but there are people that I do not talk about, right? And I think that it's, for me, a comfort around this idea of home is rejecting perfection, right? Like, home can't be perfect. And also, like, rejecting scarcity. I think a lot of the reason why my home wasn't always perfect, or my home wasn't always great, was actually rooted in the fact that we didn't have resources, that we didn't have things, and people became stressed. And I have, now, like, some separation from that to be able to say that, and be honest with that. But yeah, I mean, I think also it's just okay to be sometimes honest that home doesn't necessarily bring the positive, happy, all of those, like, words, that sometimes I yearn for, and sometimes I know others yearn for too. So I choose joy and I choose celebration, but it is a struggle. So I appreciate the tension that you're naming.
And I just briefly want to also say thank you very much for that question too. I've actually felt like kind of off all day. I think like this topic is really triggering for me. I remember like I writing a poem once where I was like, it's that feeling of like, I want to go home. Like you hear people say that, like, I just want to go home. But like it was like, as I was writing, it was like, I want to go home, but I don't know where home is. Like, I really don't, it's like, there's also a song I've written recently for a project that's, when people say they've got that hometown feeling, I'll never get their meaning. Like I I grew up in a small town like in Montana. I said it was like a very hometown feeling, I just never felt it, I don't know, but I will say, and to bring it back to what you mentioned, like Rumi, uh, wherever you are, be the soul of that place. So I practice that a lot to try to find home, that sense of belonging and safety in my body somatically, because I just really the sense of home is very elusive for me. Pretty sure it has to do with where you feel connection and love, and you feel seen and heard. And I can feel it in my body, but it's not necessarily connected to a place for me or specific memories even.
And the monk said that he doesn't look for happiness, he looks for peace. Because when you achieve happiness, there's sadness. And when you achieve the high, you get the low. And so I'm thinking down, like my marriage was a wisdom to me. But that is the reality. And the sooner we can get there and be okay with that, then we will heal. And the sooner that we can deconstruct this, I drew it all in my notes. My friends tell me a little piece of paper. But it's like I drew the house with the little the square, the triangle on top. So I'm like, what the fuck is that? Not one of them. No, so when I go to my apartment that I can finally afford, it's like 2 minutes for a change. I don't know what it is. Like, how do I get 2 inches of taller than me and how much I can afford? But that's going to be helpful for that. And that's okay.
Thank you. I will not be repeating that for the live stream, but just know it went down. Okay, I will pass it back to Carmen. We are at time, and I would love for you to be able to close out.
Oh my gosh, you all. I just want to thank you. I want to thank each of you for risking being with us, being fully present, loving us, loving yourselves, creating a bit of community right here, a bit of home right here. Let's just affirm and give you some affirmations, and then I'll just say goodnight. But let's just affirm. Much. And I want to close out with what Donna said. Which was just that feeling a little bit of that right here. That thing that we're striving for, being able to feel a little bit of it right here. And by extension, we can just keep that ripple going out and out. Last sentence. In the beginning, there was community. Thank you, everybody.